Hey, what's up y'all? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is John. I'm an American that's been living here in Guangdong, China for 14 years. And if you saw my last video, you know I'm about to leave, not leave China, but leave Guangdong to another province. But anyway, today we're gonna talk about something else because a lot of people requested this kind of video, so I'm here to deliver. So a lot of people were asking me about teaching in China and they wanted more content related to teaching in China, more specifically about I guess like getting a job here and kind of requirements and stuff like that. So I'm gonna take y'all through some of those things today. Basically all about what you need to know for living in China. Sorry, I'm looking here, I wanna get ran over. I'm crossing the road. I'm actually on my, call it a break, but I don't have any class right now. It's Tuesday, I'm at work, but stepped out to go for a walk and grab some coffee and decided I would make this video for y'all. So forgive me if I have to stop, but it's actually kind of raining a little bit. And the people at DJI, they told me not to use this camera in the rain, but fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. So also keep in mind, I'll try to put some timestamps below the video so you can skip ahead to any section that you think may be better for you or that you really want to listen to. But really I suggest you watch the whole thing because I don't have any scripts. If y'all know me, I never use a script. I just do everything off the top of my head. So I might throw some little tidbits in here and there that come to mind as they come to mind. And that being said, let's get into it. The first thing that I want to talk to you about when it comes to teaching in China, basically, it's going to be some of the requirements. So the first thing, to legally work in China with a work visa and all that stuff, you need a 4-year degree. Now the degree can be in any subject. It don't matter what subject it's in. More than likely, if you take a job here teaching, more than likely you're going to be teaching English. But there are jobs for subject teachers for like teaching math or science or history, economics, things like that. PE, which is what I'm going to be doing. Actually, I'm going to teach PE at a new school here in a couple months. But so there's jobs for subject teachers if you know a specific subject and your degree is in that subject, you can teach that subject. But if your degree's not in that subject but in something else, you can still teach English, right? It's like if you have a degree in economics or engineering or science or something, you can still get a job teaching English. Actually, my degree is in business, and I'm teaching English. So it doesn't really matter your degree as long as you have a 4-year degree. Now, on to some other things. Technically, according to the law, you need to be a native English speaker, which means you need to be from, America, Canada, Ireland, South Africa, Australia, all these places, right? You need to be from one of those countries. But that being said, I know a lot of people who are non-native English speakers who are working here legally with a legal work visa and they're here teaching English. So, it's not impossible, you can definitely do it. There's some ways around it and basically what some of the schools like to do. Sorry, I'm gonna cross this big ass road here, I hope I don't get ran over. But usually what the schools like to do for non-native speakers, they'll usually like hire you as something that's not really a teacher, but you'll still be a teacher. So for example, they might hire you as like a manager. So yeah, like they might give you a job and say, oh, this is gonna be like our manager of this department or that department or like whatever. It might be in some kind of like director or consulting or something like that, but you won't be doing that job. You'll be teaching and not doing what they hired you or what they said they hired you for. That's quite often the case when it comes to non-native speakers and how they get around the law. But just know this, technically that is illegal. The school does those illegal things to get teachers in here because they really lack for teachers. But if something was to happen and there was like a big inspection or something and they found that you were actually teaching English and not doing what your job title says on your visa, like the police have an inspection or something, you could possibly be in trouble for that. But oftentimes there's ways around it. Schools pay, pay money and like in terms like a bribe or like a hongbao, it's like a red packet, like they pay a little bit of money and they can escape those penalties. But oftentimes the teacher can't escape those penalties. So just be wary of that and be careful about that situation. But to my understanding, because I know a lot of non-native English speakers who are working here, and I've never met one who's got in trouble for, teaching English on some like a manager visa or something like that. I've never met one that's gotten in trouble. So I think it's kind of something that's been overlooked a lot over the past several years, just especially because there's really a lack of English teachers in China, especially after the whole COVID situation, like a mass exodus of foreigners from China. And most of those foreigners were native speakers. So they really need teachers now. That being said, there are a lot of reforms coming to the education system, and you really never know what's going to happen as far as, you know, the laws and regulations regarding teaching. They say, like, I heard rumors that starting this year in Shanghai, you can't teach in Shanghai unless you have a teaching license from your home country. So you're actually a teacher in your home country. And the rumor has it that after next year, that they're going to implement that all over China, which means people like myself who, you know, don't have a teaching license in America will no longer be able to teach in China. But that's just a rumor right now. You know, when things happen here in China, they happen fast, right? Like, they just make an announcement, and next thing you know, 30 days later, 60 days later, it's implemented. So they move pretty fast here in regards to any laws and regulations, especially around education. Education reform happens super fast. So that's something else to be thinking about. Honestly, in my honest opinion, I think it's a little bit late in the game to come to China to teach. You know, the salary in China is good. I'd say it's better than most places in Asia in regards to teaching salary. Like, but it pays way more than South Korea, Japan, you know, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. Pays a lot more than all those places, double, sometimes 4 times more. Like in my case, I'm getting at least 4 times more than what they get in Vietnam. So the salary is good, but that might not last very long. So something else to think about. Just my personal opinion. I think this whole teaching in China thing possibly may be coming to an end very soon. So, and it's people crazy. So anyway, I'm just arriving here at the coffee shop. I'm going to order my coffee and then sit down and chat to y'all a little bit more about this. So you can see here, the coffee shop I always like to go to. So anyway, give me a minute. Let me get my coffee and get sorted, and I'll continue this video. Where was I? Oh yeah, about the requirements. Sorry, I had to get my coffee and then get sorted out here, get my camera set up a little better. Sweating my ass off. And it's only not even June yet, and it's blazing hot here. But anyway, as I was saying about the requirements, another requirement that you may need, other than your, well, not that you may need, that you must have, other than your 4-year degree. Number 1 is you need at least 2 years prior teaching experience. But if you don't have that, you can have a TEFL, like the TEFL certificate. If you have that, you can bypass the prior 2 years experience. But without a TEFL certificate, you must have 2 years prior experience. But from what I've seen, in more cases than not, even if you have lots of experience, they still want a TEFL. So I would highly suggest you go ahead and get the TEFL anyway. And you know, if you don't need it, fine. But more than likely, like every place that asks you or interviews you or talks to you about a job, they're going to ask you for your TEFL certificate. So there's lots of different ones. You know, there's TEFL, TESOL, something like that. There's a bunch of different ones. It doesn't really matter which one you get, as long as you get one. All right, so that's gonna be something that you're really gonna need. I've never seen anybody not ask for it, so gonna need that. If you don't have experience, not a big deal. Especially if you have that certificate, you're good to go. And then the other thing that you're gonna need is gonna be a background check. And like, it can be on the federal level, or it can be a state background check from whatever state you live in, or I don't know how you other countries classify things. I guess like some other countries go by province or even by city. So me personally, I have a federal background check from the FBI, and I also have a background check from the state that I'm from. Now, I did that 14 or 15 years ago. It's been a long, long time ago when I did that, but that one check has been sufficient for the whole time in China because I've never left China. I've been here the whole time. So anytime I change job, that's usually enough. And I've had them a couple of times ask me for my local background check from here in China. So basically that's really easy to get if you're already in China, or you come to China and you want to change jobs or something like that, and they ask you for that. It's really simple. You just go to the local police station where you've been living, like where you registered at, and get the background check from them. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you're new to China and you are changing jobs, go to your local police station, get your background check before you leave, because once you leave that city, you can't get it through the mail. You have to go back to that city to get the check. So make sure you get your police check before you leave the city that you're working in. Even if your new employer doesn't require it, I suggest you get it. It's free, and you might need it later down the road in the future. If you change to another job 4 or 5 years later, they still might ask you for that. So best to just get it anytime you plan on moving cities. So that's something else to keep in mind. So that's really basically it as far as requirements go. So we'll cover this real quick. 4-year degree, background check, TEFL certificate. right? Those are the things that you really need as far as being able to legally work here. Now, other things in regards to teaching in China, I've had both really, really great experiences and not so good experiences, but I wouldn't say terrible. I've heard horror stories of people having really, really bad experiences when it comes to teaching here, but a lot of that has been, you know, several years ago. I haven't heard too many stories about that as of recent, so things might be a little better now as far as the current situation, you know, with scammers and this kind of thing, like, and some of these private businesses still do some things that are kind of shady. I don't know, I haven't heard a lot of bad stories recently, but there are some things that you need to know when it comes to this, right? So usually whenever you take a job here in China, especially a teaching job, more than likely you're going to sign a one-year contract, especially your very first contract will be a one-year contract. And so usually what that contract entails, there's several different ins and outs of the contract. I don't make this video too long, but I guess y'all can skip ahead if there's some section you want to go to. But when it comes to the contract, there's several different ways they do the contract. Like I said, the first contract is usually going to be a year, and after you finish a year, oftentimes if you want to stay at that school and they really like you, they'll offer you a 2-year contract. So you'll end up doing like 3 years at one school before going somewhere else. But it's always negotiable, right? You can always negotiate for 1 year or negotiate for 3 years, something like that. You can negotiate shorter or longer. It's really up to you and up to the school as far as that goes. But myself, when it comes to my own personal suggestion, I would suggest going with a 1-year contract. And I'll tell you why. If you get a 2-year contract, you're locked in to the salary that you have at the beginning of your contract. But if you do a 1-year contract and say you do a really great job and everybody loves you, the kids love you, the school loves you, the parents love you, when it comes time to sign a new contract, you can negotiate for more money. And if you sign a 2-year contract, you take that off the table, right? You're already locked in for 2 years. But if you stay there 1 year, they like you, they offer you a 2-year contract, you can say, I think I'll just take 1 year. You can negotiate more money. And then after that year, it becomes time to sign another one. Even if you want to stay, you can still sign year by year because it gives you negotiating power to get more money as far as, you know, your salary goes. But a lot of schools will pay it because once you've established a relationship with the kids and with the parents, the schools don't want to let you go because here foreign teachers come and go often. They're in and out all the time. And a lot of times, you know, the parents don't like that. And also it's kind of hard on the kids sometimes when they, you know, lose a teacher that they've had for a long time and things like that. And so, you know, it just looks better for the school to keep you around, and usually they'll, you know, give you more money as long as you're not asking for something ridiculous. But you can usually always negotiate up a little bit more, which has been the case for me. I've been able to do that over the years. So something to keep in mind. So another thing in regards to the contract, there's lots of different things in the contracts that are standard and some that are not standard. So usually the standard contract is going to tell you your working hours. It's going to say like, you know, no more than 40 hours per week. It'll tell you like the time, like it might say like 8 o'clock to 5 or 5:30 or something like that. And it'll stipulate like the lunch time. It'll say like 2 hours for lunch or 2.5 hours for lunch. It usually has the times listed there. And then they usually have some other stipulation in there that says like you might be required to work like on a Saturday or something like that occasionally. And in most cases, it's usually just a few times a year, like 4 or 5 times a year. They might have some kind of special event or something. You might need to come work on Saturday, but it's not like a regular thing in most cases. So it's usually not a problem, but that's usually going to be written in your contract. So if you see that, nothing to be alarmed of. And usually also in the contract, they usually have like a end of contract bonus. So once you finish your contract, they'll usually offer you, sometimes I've seen like 1 month's salary as bonus. I've also just seen like a flight ticket bonus instead. It's like they give you like, you know, 15,000 RMB or 10,000 RMB or something like that to basically to buy a flight ticket to go back home, because people usually will travel, you know, they'll go home and come back, or just go home and not come back, right? They usually offer this kind of bonus package in your salary, whether you're going home or not. It's usually in the contract, and they'll pay you that when your contract is finished. And then when it comes to the breaks, because as a teacher, right, here in China, so there's a bug flying around, they have summer and winter breaks. So during those breaks, I've seen different contracts for different things. Some of them, they say like no pay during those breaks. Some of them say half pay. And all the ones I've ever signed have had full payment during summer and winter holidays. I've flat refused to sign one that doesn't have it, but it's negotiable. So if you get a contract that says half payment or no payment during the holiday, you can negotiate and tell them, you know, I'll sign only if you pay me during the summer, pay me during the winter, or whatever, blah, blah. So all this stuff in the contract is negotiable. But if you negotiate it, make sure that they put it into writing in the contract. Do not go by word of mouth, because they will never stick with it, never. So always make sure that it's in writing. Whatever you negotiate for, whatever money you negotiate for, as far as like overtime salary or holiday pay and all this and that, make sure it's in writing in the contract. If it's not, do not sign it. So as far as contracts goes, that's really basically it. All you need to know. Basically everything's negotiable. Salary, holiday pay, all these things. It's all negotiable. And then, so another thing to consider when it comes to teaching in China is going to be that the management style is very, very different than working in the West. So they're going to do a lot of things that you really hate. Like I would just flat out hate. There's a lot of things you will not like at all. And you'll think it's stupid or unreasonable. But if you go in and try to argue with them about it, or go in and try to change the system, you're wasting your time, because they will never change, they'll never budge. Even if you know that it's not good for the kids what they're doing, this is, you know, their country and their rules. You kind of have to play by it. And you know, if you don't like it, I suggest you just finish your time and then go to another job that may be better, right? And that's the thing with having the one-year contract. You don't have to sacrifice too much. You know, you just finish your contract and then you go find somewhere else, right? So some places are better than others. I've worked at some that are really great, and the one I've been at now is not so great. That's why I'm leaving. So this is something to be aware of. There's going to be some rules and some things that you have to do that you're going to think are stupid, or you're going to think they don't make sense, or you're not going to see how it benefits the kids. And they just don't care. Like, this is how they just do things their way, and that's how it is. And you know, you just have to follow the rules. So that's basically it, right? Really, when it comes to dealing with the different bosses, you're just going to have to experiment and sacrifice some time to find one that you really like. And eventually you will. Like, I've had some that I really, really liked a lot, and the only reason I left was just because I just felt like I needed some change, because I was there for many, many years. So other ones that I left, it was just because, like, closure of international department, a closure of the school or something like that, so I had to leave, no choice. But as far as that goes, yeah, it's okay, it's good. Change is good. It's not like the West. You're not going to find a job and stay there forever. It's best to just go through different types of jobs. So when it comes to the teaching here, there are different types of jobs. Usually you have your kindergartens, your training centers, your primary schools, middle school, high school, university. There's so many different ones. And me personally, I've done all of them, except for the training centers. I never worked at a training center, and I never had any desire to, but I've done all the rest of them. And me personally, I prefer the younger kids. It's just, for me, I just feel it's better. It's just more fun, more rewarding most of the time. So, but you might be different to me. You might like something different. But when it comes to like the university jobs, a lot of times, you know, the students have phones. They won't pay attention to you. They just be on the phone playing games or doing some shit. And I feel like I'm wasting my time. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. That's why I prefer the younger kids, because they're not allowed to have phones at school. They're not allowed to do that stuff. And you really get a lot out of them. Like, when you're actually teaching them, if you're a good teacher, then, you know, they're usually pretty engaged and they can learn a lot. And they can make a lot of progress pretty fast. And it's kind of cool to see that progress and see how, like, what they're learning and things like that. It's pretty interesting to see the growth. So something to consider. That's why I prefer the younger kids most of the time, but it can also be a nightmare if you work at a place that doesn't support your teaching, right? Like, you know, some places you might go, it might be 20 kids in the class, some might have 40 or 50 in the class, and oftentimes they'll stick you in there with no help, no nothing. It can get crazy if you don't have a lot of experience, or even if you do have a lot of experience, it can still get crazy depending on the children's level of discipline, what they've learned in the past or from their parents and things like that. So some are better than others. It's just been my experience. What's another thing I wanted to talk to you about? That's really it in regards to the requirements in teaching, and basically the overall kind of experience what you get when it comes to teaching in China. Overall, it's a pretty great experience. It's definitely worth it. Would I consider teaching in another country? Yeah, I would. But the salary is not quite as good. And I've just been in China for so long that, I don't know, I've just grown a love for China and being here. But things are taking a change not for the better right now, or for me anyway, as an American, just based on the news, you know, lots of stuff in the news, and a lot of people, they, you know, say bad things. I've even had students say, you know, my parents told me don't listen to you, American people are bad, or something like that. And you're gonna come across these kind of people, and just part of it. You just gotta learn to deal with it and brush it off and just do your own thing. Because some people will absolutely love you, and some are gonna hate you. And that's part of being a foreigner in another country, especially when you're American. You know, a lot of people don't like Americans. And, you know, I can understand why. but at the same time, you know, we're not all the same. So if people for some reason just don't like you because you're American or because you're black or brown or whatever you look like, don't pay no attention to that kind of stuff, because you know, everybody's got their own thing. You can't control what other people's thinking. So some people might say some bad things like that to you. Just forget about it, man. Just move on and do your own thing, because there's going to be lots of other people who will love you and embrace you and take you in as a close friend and treat you really well. So keep that in mind. Just don't get too upset about it. And then, yeah, that's really all I can think of right now that I got to say. But if you have any questions, something I didn't talk about, something I didn't cover, please feel free to leave that in the comments below, and I'll try to reply to you or make a video for you about your question. If it's something that I can make a whole video about, I'll be more than happy to do that for you. And also, you can feel free to reach out to me. You know, I think I got my email address in my on my about page or something like that. You can reach out to me through email. I don't reply very fast because I just have a lot of stuff, and to be honest with you, I never check my email, but sometimes I do. So you can reach out to me that way too. If you really have like a serious personal question that might get overlooked or something like that, then you can feel free to do that too. No problem. So anyway, appreciate your time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see y'all next time.